Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on what are cliches. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would have an understanding of the notion of cliches. Well, if I define this term cliche at the outset, I think this would be a very appropriate idea. So to define a cliche, I would say a cliche is a phrase or opinion that is overused and thus betrays a lack of original thought. So, the basic concept is that it is overused, thus the meaning that is attached to it, it becomes more like a betrayal. I would give you examples of, for example, of usage. That old cliche, a woman's place is in home. So, cliches are all those words as well as all those terms that upon inspection, if we inspect them, if we investigate them, they were striking and thought-provoking. However, people began overusing them. And when they were overused in the society, thus, they became trite. Now, how does it happen? A cliche is something that somebody says as something very thought-provoking, something very significant. But it is so significant and thought-provoking that people start using it. Now, when they start using it, it keeps on being used in the same way. It is applied to different situations. It is applied to different contexts. And it happens so by so that it is so much overused that it loses its original meaning or novelty. Cliché also may refer to actions and events that are predictable because of some previous events. Now, because the term is being overused, it is applied to different same kind of situations. So, it may refer to the prediction of a kind of a situation that is, or an event that is same like the previous ones. So, if we look actually at the examples of cliches, once all of them were new, and they were fresh, they received popularity, they were used extensively by public, they were used to the extent of overuse, and when they were overused, they lost their original color or original flavor. I would give you the example to make the meaning clear to you. For example, this is a cliche to say, as red as a rose. So, somebody somewhere, would have used this comparison to refer to the particular red color of something by comparing it with a rose. But, people, somehow liked the expression or found it interesting or, found it meaningful in different contexts. So people started using it frequently. They started using it frequently to the extent that it became overused. And now, it has turned into a cliche where, it is just used, without referring to that original context or whatsoever it meant in that particular context. Well, overuse or repeated use does not mean that every expression or every word that is repeatedly used becomes a cliche. And, there are a lot of typical expressions that are related to certain events or festivals or ceremonies or for example, court proceedings, festivals, etc. And they are always used like that, but these expressions are not cliches. I would give you some examples of that. So, for example, when in the board or council meetings it is said, I second the motion, I second this motion. So, this phrase is not a cliche, though it is repeatedly used in these situations. Another example is of wedding ceremonies where, in the Christian context, the priest would announce, I now pronounce you man and wife. So, this has been repeatedly used over centuries, but this is not a cliche. So, the only rule is not overuse or repeated use, also losing its, original meaning and being used as something generalized. These are the aspects that make something a cliche. Another example of that is happy birthday. So, cliches are used for, kind of for ease by people, whereas other expressions that are also repeatedly used in language may not be cliches. There are so many cliches that you would have come across in your lives. I am just going to share a couple of those. For example, some common cliches are, they all lived happily ever after. Read between the lines. Fall head over heels. The quiet before the storm. Between the devil and the deep sea. As far as the function of cliches is concerned, well, a cliche though fails to contribute meaning to the social interactions and communications because it is used as a repetitive, overused, generalized, word or phrase. So it does not contribute to the social meaning making process. However, it does function socially because it stimulates the behaviors of the speaker and of the listener, whereas the speaker and the listener's cognitive or emotional aspects of interaction are motivated through that. And in doing all this, however, it avoids reflecting on the meaning because it is taken for granted.